Hello and welcome to the Rams Talk podcast. And today it's the Coventry City versus Derby County preview show. And I'm joined here with Ross from the SkyBluesExtra podcast. Ross, how are you?
Yeah, very well. Thanks, Adam. Yeah, great to be on and preview the big game on Wednesday night.
Yeah, certainly so. And it probably is a big game for Derby County fans. We're desperate for something on the road at the moment, obviously coming off the back of that 2-1 loss away to Stoke. But we'll get straight into it now. And for the Derby County fans listening, could you give us a quick overview of Coventry City's summer, basically, for us?
Yeah, I mean it's been an interesting one. I think sort of being in it, being a supporter, and I think the fan base as a whole this summer was one of real sort of excitement and anticipation, and I think there was a lot of expectation. Probably the most sort of the highest expectation that we've had as a fan base, probably certainly since we got promoted back to the Championship, and probably since the first season we got relegated from the Premier League back in 2001, 2002, in terms of the expectation of actually really trying to sort of achieve something and sort of at least be in the conversation. So we have spent a lot of money again on players, as we had previous summer as well, after selling Victor Gyökeres and Hamer. So we reinvested a lot of that money and brought in some really good players, and I think everyone was really confident. We'd brought them in quite early into the summer transfer window, which Mark Robins had alluded to that he wanted to get them in for the first day of pre-season. Pre-season went really well. There's some really positive signs, albeit you can only take a certain amount of stuff from pre-season, but there was positive signs nonetheless. And then we start the season, and apart from the last two games, up until then there was a lot of surprise and some negativity starting to creep in because we were nowhere near the levels that we were sort of expecting to be at. And the last two seasons, I'm sure Derby fans and other fans you would have seen, we've started the season, we tend to start quite badly. And the year we got to the playoff final, we were bottom in end of October, and we got to the playoffs and a kick away from the Premier League. So we know as a fan base it is a long season, but I think we were sort of expecting to sort of start strong. Yeah, that had been a message from the owner and from Mark Robins and all the rest of it. So to then start as bad as last season and the season before was a bit of a downer. And of course the usual negativity sort of builds up. But the last couple of results look like a turning point, and hopefully we can kick on.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about that start of the season form, I think Derby fans, we experienced it last season. Obviously, we ended up getting promotion from League One, but at the start of the season, the results weren't there. We had such high expectations, and a couple of early season poor results sort of put a downer on things at the start. But we've managed to get promotion. We've come into the Championship, and I think it's the opposite for us at the moment. Our start of the season, the performance levels were really high, some great results. I think a lot of people thought we'd be in that bottom three very early on, but we've had some very good performances and sort of switched a little bit recently in the last couple of games. Performance levels definitely have dropped a small amount, unfortunately, and that's come hand in hand with the fact we haven't won away from home yet. And obviously Coventry away on Wednesday night will be a very difficult game for us. But you mentioned briefly there the expectations this season with Coventry fans to be in that top six once again and aiming for that promotion.
Yeah, I think so. I think obviously we had a huge taste of it a couple of years ago, getting all the way to the playoff final and narrowly missing out. And then I think we sold a couple of big players. So I think last season the expectation was, if we can have a decent season again, I think when you lose big players like that and bring in 11 new signings, there's always going to be a bit of a delay in trying to adapt to that because Gyökeres was such a huge player for us of how we played. So last season it did take a while, and I think a lot of fans were happy to sort of go along with Mark Robbins's sort of sentiments of it's going to take time to bed these players in. And then obviously when they did, we went on a huge run. Obviously in the FA Cup, got to a toenail away from getting to the FA Cup final and beating Man United. So we had and then the league form suffered a little bit, but I think the fans were. I think we were happy to take that really because we thought the FA Cup thing that will last forever. It's I think this season the expectation of fans was that actually let's certainly improve on last year, and we need to be in that conversation for the top six throughout. And ideally, I think I was certainly one of the view that I want us to be in that picture, and possibly if we went on a good run, be in a position to maybe even throw a little challenge at that sort of second spot. Not saying that is what I expected, but you've seen teams like Ipswich and other teams can be in that, 4th, 5th spot for a while. And if you stay within touching distance, then you've got half a chance. But obviously, our start to the season sort of put a bit of a downer on those expectations. But it is a long season, as you say. And, if we can, on our day, we can beat anybody. And it's just finding that consistency.
Yeah, and I think that's it, isn't it, this season in the Championship? I think, for me, when I look at it as a neutral, there's a lot of teams that are very even this year in the Championship, especially in that below the mid-table spot. So getting that form to be able to push yourself right up towards that top 6 is really difficult. But once you have that, in my opinion, you'll be right up there. As you can tell, Derby, our form hasn't been, well, our performance levels haven't been amazing, but our form's been okay, and it's kept us in that sort of mid-table contention, which is great. But even then, I think as fans, we're just expecting that a little bit more in terms of the performances. Not necessarily the results. Don't expect to win every game by any means. But even get some points in games would be nice. But I think, it's this season in the Championship where if you can get a bit of form, you'll be right up there, I think, no matter who the side is. But it's so difficult, isn't it?
There's a lot of games, isn't there, every week in the Championship you look at and you sort of go, it's a bit of a toss of a coin, in probably 8 out of the 12 fixtures every game week you look at and go, they could beat them, it could be a draw, score draw, whatever, and which is why we love the league. I mean, I from a Coventry perspective, I look at Derby and I think you're doing really well. I think I looked at your sort of squad and the teams who sort of came up, and I don't know. Again, it's a long season, but I think there was an expectation that Derby might find it a little difficult. Paul Warren's not had the best sort of history, albeit with Rotherham, sort of when he's gone up. But actually, you've done really, really well, and the same with Oxford as well, and obviously Portsmouth are the ones who found it sort of toughest. But you've got some good players who actually a Championship experience who seem to have found like a second wind, really. Mendes Lang, for example, I've got a friend of mine who's a Cardiff fan and really loved him, but then he seems to go off the rails a little bit, but suddenly he's really taken to it again, and I think that you need performers like that, don't you? I mean, I found it when we got promoted from League One, 5 seasons ago, whenever it was, and again, you need those players to sort of stand up and make an impact, don't you? Especially in tight games against teams in and around you. Yeah,
no, exactly that. And I think talking about Derby a little bit with our team, it's been that case where when we come up, we just wanted that Championship experience in there, sort of, so we could bed in and try and get as many results that were positive as we could. And it's what you need, I think, from the step up from League One. You need that Championship experience, and you've seen Derby and Rotherham have tried to recruit that. Sorry, Derby and Oxford, not Rotherham. I've got Paul Warren's Rotherham on the brain there, and we've recruited that experience, and it's helped us out. And then if we sort of look at the conversation now and go towards the form that Coventry, and obviously 3 games unbeaten now, that massive win away at Middlesbrough. Talk us through that Middlesbrough game. Obviously there was the sending off, and just talk us through it.
Yeah, I think as you say, 3 games unbeaten now, so it's starting to sort of look like a little bit of a positive run. Started obviously with that draw against QPR, and then Luton obviously was on Sky, 2-0 down, second half turn around, and I think that felt like the moment really in which actually if results carried on, Mark Robins, despite what he's done, would inevitably come under pressure at some point, and I feel like that result really sort of turned everything back in his favour. And then obviously Middlesbrough, they're a side that we got a decent record against away there, and obviously, as you say, the early sending off, but it was 2 yellows, and then we massively managed to be able to we were able to push on and really take advantage. Had to be patient at times, but I think the previous win had given a lot of the players some confidence, and I say this all the time to on the SkyBluesExtra podcast and friends in the ground, is we've got a lot of players who are on their day that they look a level above. And opposition fans will say, "Oh, he was like the best player on the pitch," but they only do it maybe 5 times out of 10. Where we need them to be doing it 7 or 8 times out of 10, and that's what we need. And I think against Middlesbrough, we showed some quality and confidence, and the sort of impact that some confidence can have, within the group. So obviously we go into Wednesday full of confidence, and obviously from our point of view, we'll be looking to try and build on that and make it 3 wins in a row.
Yeah, and when you talk about that Borough game, I mean, I've only seen the highlights. I've not watched the full 90, but the technical ability and intensity of the team is pretty obvious on display, especially with the attacking intent. That first goal, the header, superb ball into the box, isn't it? And a pinpoint cross. And I think that leads me on to now and talk Derby fans through how they can expect Coventry to play,
Yeah.
pretty much the tactical style under Mark Robins and them sort of things.
Yeah, so we started the season very much with a sort of 4-2-3-1, but with a sort of, and he was changing the back line quite a bit. In the last couple of games, we've last sort of 3 games, we've gone to a back 5, which is what we did do at the start of last season and then the playoff season. So it's an interesting one, whether this is just a short-term thing to try and get us through this patch and then ideally with the players we've got, switch. But yeah, I didn't anticipate again a back 3 and then playing wing backs. Keep an eye out for Milan Van Eyck. He, in my view, is probably the best right back in the league. I think he's got a huge ceiling, and I think he is probably in the next 18, even potentially at the end of the season, could go for big money somewhere really, because he's rapid. It's like watching sort of Kyle Walker sort of thing. Gets us out of so much trouble. And as a result, is very good defensively. And then obviously midfield, our captain Ben Sheaf will sort of sit there with Josh Eccles, who got a goal and an assist against Middlesbrough. And then we've got obviously the 2 strikers, Haji Wright and Ellis Sims, although it was Brandon Thomas-Asante who played against Middlesbrough. And it's an interesting one because when we were playing the 4 at the back, Haji Wright was playing as a left winger, you see. So with this 5, it means that we play like a 5 sort of 2-on-2, if you like, and sort of Sakamoto can go into that cam position, or Victor Torp, or whoever he might choose. So that's what I'd expect on Wednesday. But it is Mark Robins; he might suddenly change it, and go to a back 4. But I think he'll stick with the tried and tested of the last 3 games and use that pace of Haji Wright. He's 6'4". When he gets going, he's very, very difficult to stop, very direct. And then, whether it's Sakamoto, who's technically very good, or Ellis Sims brings that physical presence. So we try and play football, but we try and exploit the spaces. I think we're good on the counter. If Derby have some pressure, what Derby fans can expect is when we get it Wright will be the sort of the out ball into space, and he'll back himself against anyone. So, and getting the wing backs overlapping and getting balls into the box. So that's how I think we'll continue to play.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned the pressure. I think Coventry fans have nothing to worry about pressure in their half on Wednesday night, if I'm going to be honest. Derby, we've not landed a glove on most teams away from home this season, unfortunately.
Why do you think that is? Is that different to
I think it's
Pride Park? Or
yeah, it is. I think at Pride Park at the start of the season, I've always said the benchmark was the Bristol City win, the 3-0 win. We absolutely blew them away with our performance, and that could be down to a couple of players being in the team that at the moment are currently out injured. But away from home, what's been the obvious is we lack any sort of confidence going forward. I think defensively we're a decent team. We've got a very good goalkeeper. Obviously, Cashin and Nelson in central centre back positions, in my opinion, they're quality. But then I think what we struggle with is obviously the midfield balance we rely so heavily on, and when we've got players out injured such as David Ozo, and then when Howard Mine away from home isn't as effective as he is at home, we struggle really to create a single opportunity. I think away at Stoke we didn't really create anything that was going to be a goal scoring opportunity. Millwall away was the same until the corner, and then if I look back to Sheffield United away, I don't think we got out our half in the second half. Obviously Sheffield United are a great team, but when you're playing the Millwalls and the Stokes, which is no disrespect to them, you expect to be able to come into the game at times. Yeah, and I think unfortunately it's probably going to be one of them seasons where our home form has to be on it for us to be being with a good shout in the division. I think looking to Coventry away, I'm nervous with how we're going to play. I think we're going to be forced to play the 5 at the back with the wing backs, but what worries me is our right hand side. Our best right back would be Ryan Niambe, who's out for a couple of months with an injury, which leaves us with either Joe Ward, who's probably third choice on the right hand side in the defensive position. Defensively he's a lot poorer than he is. He's quite good going forward, but then that also means we've got some very good wingers who miss out on a spot out wide. So I'm a little bit nervous for Coventry away, that because of how little belief we seem to have going forward. I mean, Jerry Yates is a striker who's hit double figures for Blackpool. He was Swansea City's marquee signing last season, and for us he's getting absolutely zero service.
Right.
So it's going to be, but I think a couple of Derby fans will be worried about Wednesday night in terms of whether we're going to come away with anything, because I know quite a few have said, when will we get an away win? I can't personally see it.
Is he the one who's sort of leading the line? Because I know you got Caden Jackson as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I think the problem with our formation in previous games was that Jerry Yates is on his own when the midfield doesn't pick up the ball and he's not getting a touch. He had so few touches. We even brought James Collins on up front for 18 minutes on against Stoke and he didn't touch the ball once, which says a lot about how far forward we even got.
Right.
Jerry Yates seems to be quite isolated on his own. Caden Jackson started the season really well, like lightning quick in my opinion with his finishing. I think he's got 2 or 3 goals now. But in recent weeks, his form's definitely dropped off. And I think quite a few fans have questioned whether we should be playing him out wide. We've got Corey Blackett-Taylor on the bench, who's looked really sharp when coming off the bench, and he's scored a goal against Norwich, been given a start against Millwall, but then been dropped to the bench and got told to warm up against Stoke, and then when he was about to be brought on, got told to put his jumper back on, sit back down, which really annoyed fans probably because we hadn't landed a glove on Stoke all game, and to not bring on probably the most direct attacking player we've got was quite annoying when Caden Jackson unfortunately has had a poor couple of matches, and it should just be a case of maybe where we give him a rest for a game or two, allow another player to come into the side, try and prove that he should be the first choice. But unfortunately Paul Warne's persisted with Caden Jackson out wide and it's not worked too well, and I think there's just a couple of players out of form at the moment, and it's one of them where when they're out of form we're not creating much.
Yeah. I mean, I think probably if I sort of took away our last sort of couple of wins, I mean, we played Oxford early on, and one thing that I'm still not fully convinced by is our ability to just be sort of watertight at the back. We've only kept two league clean sheets this season, and even Oxford, we were by far the better side, but they had 2 attacks and scored 2 goals, and so there's still, for me, I'm a little bit reticent to sort of, previous years, like we'd score 1 goal, I'd back us to score 1, and I think, we can keep a clean sheet and win a game 1-0, whereas I'm not quite there yet. So I think if you do get opportunities, to sort of get, balls in the box or whatever, I think I'm not confident that we wouldn't give up a couple of decent opportunities. Of course, it then comes down to whether you sort of take them. And it feels like this season, most teams have taken them against us. It feels like we've been a bit unlucky that pretty much every chance against us has sort of gone in, which obviously isn't sustainable, but at the same time it gives teams opportunities. And I think for where Derby are at the moment, away from home, sit in, make it difficult for us, and as I say, if we can't play on the counter and we've got to try and control it, that it could frustrate us. And I think the fans could get frustrated if we're not breaking you down. I'm not sure that is our forte, sort of just having, 60-65% possession and trying to break teams down. I don't think we're overly brilliant at that. And then, of course, the longer a game goes on and we give away a daft free kick and a set piece, then any team's got an opportunity. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, I think. And I certainly don't look at it as like an easy, foregone conclusion at all. I think because Derby have impressed me. I think I know away form not great, but overall you've probably done better than I thought. So, yeah, I think there's a potential banana skin there, really.
Yeah, and it's definitely interesting you say that. I think a lot of fans have that sort of changed view now, because I was the same. I thought at the start of the season we're going to struggle this season. As a newly promoted side, it's pretty much what's going to happen, isn't it, when you come up into a division that's improving every season. But Derby have surprised me too with the start that we've made, and we've showed how good we can be. It needs to be a little bit more consistent, especially away from home, because it's becoming a habit that we're setting up not to lose away from home and not really going for it. Which is difficult to watch at times. But turn the conversation back to Coventry now. Who are the players that Derby County fans should watch out for on Wednesday night? I know you've mentioned a couple before, but let us know.
Certainly our top scorer. So Haji Wright, 6 goals. So he's the 3rd top scorer in the league at the moment. Scored like 17, I think, in all competitions last season. He's our record signing, 8 million from Antalya last season, and watch out for him. And I think it's interesting you say about your right side, because when we play a forward at the back, he enjoys sort of drifting out that left channel. So I think that may be an area that we look to target, and he drifts out there with his pace, and he's very direct. He seemingly can skip past players. He's good at, he gets a few assists to his name as well. And then obviously, if it's Ellis Sims or Thomas Asante, Thomas Asante is a workhorse, and he'll constantly give defenders no moment's rest. And then obviously, I think Jack Rodoni, he's been one of our sort of best players. He was a marquee signing in the summer, 3-4 million from Huddersfield. initially he's been playing as a cam, but obviously since the change of formation, he was actually deployed to like left wing back. But he's got very good set play delivery. I think he's got 3 assists already this season, and he's a good player. Ben Sheaf as well, sort of in the middle of the park. He's vitally important to us. He was injured at the start of the season, and we miss him massively because he's just got that ability to just control the game. Do you know what I mean? Be in the right positions and recycle possession, and then allow our probably more dynamic players, as I say, Milan Van Eyck on the right side, to sort of bomb forward. And then Sakamoto and Victor Torp, whoever plays in that sort of attacking mid role. Torp scored a great goal against Luton. He's got the technical ability. Sakamoto, again, very diminutive player. So, there's attacking threats. And then even on the bench, Efron Mason-Clark, again, another marquee signing we signed from Peterborough. He was in the League One team of the season last year. You'd obviously come up against him. And he's been, his game time's sort of been rationed, really. I think that because we've got Hadji Wright ahead of him. But, so there's options off the bench. So our attacking play fills me with confidence that, we can cause any team in this league problems. Our defense is, a work in progress, but I think hopefully he's found like a formula that he can just try and keep a bit of continuity. So, I think if there's a weakness, if there's like an area, I sort of, although I love Jack Redoni and he's not a left back, so if you can get forward, I'm not sure how great defensively he is. When we've got Jade Da Silva there and normally Jake Bidwell, who's injured currently. So, I think it's that middle of the park. If we have a couple of players who are off it slightly, then probably our weakest attribute is I don't think we're great with the ball. As in, I think we do tend to sort of be quite loose in possession. I think if there's one thing that Mark Robbins says more than any other after a poor performance, it's we gave away the ball far too much. And I think, and even against Middlesbrough, I think we were wasteful. We can be wasteful with it sometimes. And I think if you're sat back and we're being wasteful, trying to break you down, and then you're maybe hit a couple of counterattacks and look dangerous, I think, the crowd will start getting a bit sort of frustrated because we look at this game thinking it's a huge opportunity to get 3 in a row and then think, right, we're really looking upwards now rather than sort of, worrying about the start we've had. So, that's who I'd keep an eye on. But so some threats, but also some areas that are a little cause for concern.
Yeah, and you mentioned some quality players there. Obviously, I've seen come up in highlights in previous weeks and known about as a neutral, especially Ben Sheaf. I've been a big fan of his the last couple of seasons. And in terms of it's interesting to hear, who as a Coventry fan are you sort of watching out for in that Derby County team? Who do you think's the players to watch out for from a Coventry fan's point of view?
Well, I think, I think you've got the sort of James Collins, if he was to play, because of his Coventry connections, being from Coventry and stuff, he always seems to sort of, it would always worry me that he would just, turn up and sort of, play like prime R9 sort of thing and get a goal. I think, that pace, Mendes Lang, does he tend to play on the right or does it left? What sort of side?
Unfortunately, we've been playing him out left when his natural position is on the right, so he's not been as effective. But
it'll be interesting to see because if he was on the right, I'd be more concerned because again, he'd be up against Redoni, who's not who's just an attacking midfielder, not a left wing back. So that potentially might be something he looks at. And the pace does sort of worry me slightly. Him against none of our centre backs are overly quick. I think you've got Marcus Harness as well. I didn't realise he's a Coventry fan, Coventry kid as well. So I'm sure he'll be well up for it as well. So there's a couple of players like that who could come back to sort of haunt us really, and score against their sort of boyhood clubs. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see, I think.
Yeah, and you mentioned good players there. I didn't realise James Collins was from Coventry. Actually, I knew Marcus Harness was. He mentioned it in his interview when he signed, but that's interesting too.
Yeah, I think Marcus Harness is more like sort of proud or sort of a bit more outward with it, whereas James Collins always seems to he could have signed for us a couple of times, and then when we're in League Two and League One, and he didn't, and he sort of scored against us and did some celebration, and then so the fans, it's all got a little bit whatever really, but there are some good players, and Jerry Yates is someone who, given a chance, can score a goal. I mean, this time last summer, I think some of our fans would have been pretty pleased. Do you know what I mean? If we'd gone in for him, obviously Swansea did. So although he might not be getting much service, my concern is I think if he does get service, I think there's a good striker there, Championship level, particularly for a team like Derby, who are probably going to be in that bottom half, but look to try and get some wins on the road. I think you need someone like Jerry Yates. I think he's probably as good a player you can get at this point in your sort of redevelopment and progress. Obviously, is he on loan or is he a permanent signing?
Yeah, he's currently on loan. He's got quite a big contract from what Paul Warne said. Obviously at Swansea, obviously being pretty much the marquee signing last year. So we're only going to have him on loan. And Paul Warne said recently at Fans Forum, he definitely doesn't expect us to be trying to get him at the end of the season on a permanent based on how long he's got left. But like you say, for my opinion, he's a very good striker for a team like Derby County. We're in a position where we're not going to have a 20-goal-a-season striker because we're not in that top half of the table. And every team in the division wants a 20-goal-a-season striker, don't they? And Derby, to be able to get Jerry Yates to play, who's proven he can hit double figures, he is good enough for this level. It's just a case that he's not really been able to settle in the team at Swansea. And hopefully coming in under Paul Warne, who he's been under before at Rotherham, hopefully he can find some form. I think the difficult thing at the moment is that we just haven't been able to give him the service, and he's sort of been shoehorned into that hold-up striker, which isn't what he is. Because he's been on his own whenever the ball does come to him, he's got his back to goal. He's looking to bring other players into play when really I think Jerry Yates is best when balls are being played into the box or he's being slipped through. So we're just waiting for that balance really, I think, across the front three where Jerry Yates can really come into his own. But I think to sort of round up a little segment that we've started doing in these previews is, if there's any chance, could you give us a little bit of an away fans guide? I think it's good to be able to give the Derby fans listening a bit of an overview of Coventry, sort of the best places to park, would you say? Some away fans pubs if you do know of one, and just sort of things like that.
Yeah. Interesting. On Wednesday night. People are driving. I find finding somewhere to park difficult now. So there's obviously the car parks along the A4, which goes past the ground. Just to be wary though, to Derby County fans, that road is closed after match days, which is a new thing this season and has caused a bit of chaos. So I'd advise probably parking sort of a bit not that far away, but far enough away that maybe if you've got to walk rather than being parked right at the ground, because I think with this road closure, it's added 20 minutes onto my usual sort of time. Because obviously now one road's closer, everyone else is having to find these other way rounds and stuff. In terms of away pubs, it's actually a good question though. It's sort of funny. You'd think you'd know about your own. I don't know where the away fans go, to be honest. It
can be a difficult one. The first time I went to Coventry, we didn't go to a pub before the game and didn't really venture too far out.
So on SkyBluesExtra podcast, we're sponsored by Dylan's Brewery, and I know they welcome away fans. Obviously, all in sort of good nature and stuff. And so that is Dylan's Brewery, and that's by it's predominantly home fans, but as I say, away fans can go down, and it's a local brewery, and they've sort of developed and added quite a few bars around the city centre. But it's right by the ground. Maybe from the away end, it's probably 10-minute walk. You just walk around the other side of the stadium. It's through this like an industrial estate. You probably, if you're thinking where the hell am I initially, you're probably the right place. And then you keep going down, and if you Google it, it's there. And then there's loads of bars. There's live music playing.
It's quite nice. That
it's good. I go there every match day, and they do food there as well. Dal's Diner, Dal, the guy who runs it. So. It's very good. It is very good, and any away fans who have come always sort of speak really highly of it. So, and then also at the ground there is there's another pub, a new bar now called the Anecdote. Whether they have away fans, I'm not sure, but there's a few more now. But the brewery, they certainly would welcome you to go in and grab a beer before the game.
That sounds really nice. Actually, if I was going to Coventry, that would be my place to go.
Well, I went to Derby a couple of years ago. It was when it was 1-1, I think. I honestly, I felt like I had to walk like half a marathon to try and get a pub.
Yeah, it's the Harvester, and it's, unless away fans know, it's convenient if you're an away fan coming off the train because it's the first pub you walk past on the way to the ground. But if you're an away fan who's parked in one of the car parks, either in the city centre or something like that, it's not really on your route to the ground, so you'd have to know it is. and
Yeah.
it's like it's a good 10-minute walk, I would say, from the ground. But yeah, the Harvester, if any Coventry fans are listening to this and are thinking about making the trip to Derby, the Harvester pub is your one outside Pride
lovely.
Park Stadium. But finally, if I could quickly ask, do you have a score prediction for us ahead of this game?
Oof. Obviously I want to win. I think if we want this to sort of not just be a little moment in the sort of sun and want this to really be the turnaround and be able to push on to, if we want to get top 6, we need to be beating Derby at home. We've already lost 2 home games this season against Swansea, which was rubbish. We didn't turn up for 30 minutes, gave them a 2-goal lead, and that's what we are capable of doing. We are capable on Wednesday of not turning up at all, and Derby, finding themselves in an unbelievable winning position. So I'm going to go for 2-1. I think we will leak a goal, but I think Haji Wright is on a bit of form, 3-3 for him. I think he could cause some problems. So I'll go 2-1, but I think it'll be a close game. I don't think it will be easy by any stretch.
Yeah, that's probably a good prediction. If I had to give one, I'd snap your hand off for a 1-1. Something on the road and a goal to give us a bit of optimism. But no, I think that's a good place to wrap up the preview there. Thanks for that, Ross. You've been
lovely.
Been a really good guest on today. You've had some really good conversations with you about Coventry City and so
Derby, thank you very much for having me on, and best of luck for the rest of the season after Wednesday. So
no, thank you for that, and probably the same to you as well. If I had to say that, you can find Ross obviously with his app that's there on the screen. Also, the SkyBluesExtra podcast. Thanks for coming on, Ross. It's been really appreciated. If you are listening to this, you can obviously watch it on YouTube. It will also go out on all your podcast providers, Apple Podcast, Spotify. If you could leave us a 5-star rating, that would be great. If you didn't enjoy it, feel free to ignore that. But yeah, thank you. And that has been me, Adam, for the Rams Talk podcast.